Welcome to a new world of entertainment. The ultimate film and television podcast. Featuring Mike Winkler, Alistair Englehart, Daniel English, Jeremy Larson, and Jason Kabasic. Created by friends. All film lovers. We feature in-depth discussions and celebrity interviews. This podcast is available on all major platforms. Welcome to the Lights, Camera, Action Entertainment Reviews Podcast. On this episode, our Saw Retrospective continues. Each week, we will cover 2 of the 8 Saw films. We will be doing in-depth discussions, so this podcast will include spoilers. This retrospective will be hosted by Mike Winkler and Jason Kabasic. And now, our discussion on Saw 5 and Saw 6. Welcome back, everybody. The game continues. So does our Saw retrospective, as we are now on to Saw 5 and Saw 6. Jason Kabasic. Almost there. The end.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we're not going to have a whole lot to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I just rewatched these again today, and I got to say I have a little bit of a surprise to talk about Saw 5 that I'll talk about in a minute as far as my opinion is concerned, but we'll get into that shortly. So Saw 5 and 6. This is a series I know when it started out that I never expected to go this long or this deep.
No, not at all.
No, I think based upon what I've read, it seems like Saw 3 was supposed to be the end of the franchise. And the way Saw 3 kind of plays out, it almost feels like it could have, except the ending is a little, I don't know, doesn't feel final.
No, I get what you mean there. It really didn't. That's kind of surprising to me, though, because I never would have thought that Saw 3 would have been the final of the series. Mm-hmm. So still felt like there were loose ends they needed to tie up.
Yeah, there was way too much that they had to go into. But the box office was too strong. They couldn't just end the series there. And obviously, the creators had different intentions. But what the surprising thing is that the director of Saw 2 and Saw 3 didn't return for Saw 4. He was done. So it seems like he had called it a day and he thought the franchise should have been over.
No, I can understand that. I mean, after you hit Saw 2, once you hit Saw 3 and on, it felt like why is this still continuing? What we were discussing.
Well, I think after Kramer had died, it kind of almost felt as though like it ruined the point of why the series is continuing. He is the Jigsaw Killer, so why are we carrying it on with numerous others?
I can understand that, but it still felt like there were loose ends they needed to tie up, like different backstories they had to get into before they could really end the series.
Sure. Sure,
But
because there was a lot of side characters.
they could have also done that in Saw 4 and had that been the end of the series, like go over the different origins, the backstories, and all that, and tied everything together.
Yeah, it's like, no, they decided to go backwards and make Saw 4 a flashback to even before Saw 3 or during Saw 3's events. Instead of advancing the story forward, they kind of either stayed the same or went a little backwards.
Exactly. And that was, like, as we were discussing, that was the most confusing two films of the series.
I think we can easily say that Saw 4 through 6 is the flashback trilogy because 4 through 6 is loaded with flashbacks compared to 1 through 3.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're going to be expecting that, especially with the introduction of these characters like Hoffman and others. Like, you were expecting this to happen, especially considering, we're getting the backstory on Hoffman and how he ended up becoming Kramer's apprentice and all that.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And I'm glad that we got some
And
backstory.
another big thing is, the introduction of Jill, Kramer's wife. It was going to play a huge part in this series, and it was. So they had to do more flashbacks with that.
She was the one character I'm glad they went into because we only got little bits and pieces of her, and I think parts of 3 and parts of 4. So I was glad in 5 and 6 where they finally started giving her the screen time, started finally explaining her relevance to Kramer other than just being the wife. She was the motivation really to why he's doing what he's doing, because losing their baby was the whole reason why the whole Jigsaw thing started to begin with.
Oh, exactly. Can we discuss something real quick because off topic? The fact that the actress who plays Jill, Betsy Russell,
yeah,
how has she not aged? She's been acting forever.
It's funny that you bring that up because when I was watching the end of Saw 6 and they were showing her, I'm thinking, how old is she? Because just from like the last few movies, which was a 3-year period, she hasn't aged at all. And for her age, she looks great.
Well, yeah, she's got to be what? About her 60s now?
Gotta be.
So it's just amazing. But anyway, continuing on. So dive right into Saw 5.
Okay. First things first.
Yeah.
It had been a while since I had watched Saw 5. So I didn't remember a whole lot of it. So when I watched it again today and I got to the end of it, I was like, I kind of enjoyed this a little bit. And
I'll agree with you. I mean, it was a huge step up from 3 and 4. They did a lot more with this that I was not expecting, and I was really happy to see that. Especially with the way that they started doing Hoffman's character more in this. Like, I thought I'm like, okay, I can get behind this.
Yeah, no, I liked the pacing here. I liked the traps. I liked just the overall story. And this one I didn't find as confusing as I remembered it to be. I was able to follow it pretty well, whereas in 4, in parts of 3, it was jumbled and kind of all over the place. 5 seemed like it was kind of back on a straight and narrow. So I would easily say that 5 is already superior to both 3 and 4, I think.
Oh, exactly. There's no doubt about that. Like, I can tell you right now, 3 and 4, it's going to be a toss of which one's going to be at the very bottom of the list. The next one up on that list is going to be the other one.
Yeah, because I don't even really remember the final chapter too much. I remember the ending, but I don't really remember how the whole movie plays out as a whole. So I'll be curious to see where my opinions are on final chapter and Jigsaw after this whole thing is done. Because now 5 really surprised me because I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I actually did today.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. So anyway, going into 5 here, the budget for this film was $10.8 million, and the box office numbers were $113.9.
Still great.
Yeah, but Saw 6, the budget was $11 million, and the box office numbers just shot down 68.2.
Now, my question to you is, why do you think that is? Because after seeing Saw 5 now, I thought it did a pretty good job of keeping the series interesting.
Because, like us, the people just wanted this series to die. They
wanted to resolve.
They wanted a resolve to the story, and it was a matter of who knows when that was going to happen at this point. And it was because of that we finally got the last chapter, until Jigsaw and Spiral decided to rear their ugly heads.
Yeah, because I really have to remember, especially Jigsaw, when we talk about that next week. I have to really remember like how the structure of Jigsaw was and why they felt it was relevant to make it after the final chapter. Because the final chapter felt final enough. It felt like it closed up enough, and it felt like the end of the story. So for them to just bring Jigsaw up, I remember thinking didn't really seem necessary. But we'll see when I get back to that point again.
Oh, I know that it took place at least a few years later from the ending of 7, and that if I remember correctly, it was involving a relative of Kramer's.
That sounds about right. It's been so long since I've seen it. That sounds right, though. I think you're right on with that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be interesting once we get to that. Like I said, I'm going to have to rewatch it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just watched it for the first time a couple weeks ago. So,
mm-hmm.
But anyway, going into Saw 5 here, we're starting off with a guy that is chained up to a table beneath a pendulum blade. The videotape informs him that he can release himself by crushing his hands between two presses. He does so, but the blade still swings down and pretty much cuts him in half as someone watches through the hole in the wall.
Well, yeah, this trap was never designed for him to win. He was going to die no matter what, because he did actually go through with smashing his hands in the machine, but it didn't matter because Hoffman wanted him dead for the death of his sister, because this man actually, we find out later, murdered his sister.
Yeah. So we find out, why, like a little bit more on Hoffman's backstory through this with, finding out how he ended up becoming Kramer's apprentice.
What I have to ask you is, with Hoffman's motivation here, because we find out why he does what he does. Do you think Hoffman was just naturally a bad person? Because as we get into Saw 6, we see what he's capable of, and I have to kind of think, was this version of him or always a part of him?
I think he always had this capability.
That's what I thought too.
Wonder. I mean, obviously Kramer saw it too from the package that was sent to Jill after his death, and then the same package that was sent to Carrie Ellis's character at the end of the movie, or at the end of 7, that we ended up getting the wrap up between everything.
Yeah, right.
What got sent to him after Jill's death. That said to enact the plan on Hoffman, because he had a feeling that this was all going to end up happening. Like, he knew what Hoffman was capable of.
Yeah, because with Jill getting that last number 6 envelope with him being on it, of course, Kramer thought he deserved to be tested as well. So,
yeah. So, all right, going through that, in the present, after being locked in the sick room at the meatpacking plant by Hoffman, FBI agent Peter Strahm escapes through a hidden doorway but is attacked in the tunnel by a figure in a pig mask. He wakes up with his head sealed in a box being filled with water, but survives by performing a tracheotomy with his pen. Outside, Hoffman discovers Corbett Denlin delivers Corbett Denlin to the police and claims they are the only survivors, but is shocked when Strahm is brought out alive as well.
I was with Strahm being the hero in this film. I think this was the first time, since Detective Matthews, where I felt attached to a character that we were following in a Saw movie. I mean, we all know throughout each of these movies, we seem to get a different person to follow.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the one thing that really irritates me by these movies the most is that we never get like a certain character to follow throughout the films. It's always these one-off situations where they're hinted at the movie before just to be used as one-offs in one of their own movies. We got the same thing with Riggs in Saw 4. We got the same thing with in Saw 3 with Who wasn't in Saw 3? Oh, it wasn't.
Time to look it up. That would be.
I guess it was kind of a man.
That would be no. Denlin. Dr. Lynn Denlin was
That's
the
right.
wife, and it was Jeff.
Yeah, so these are always one-offs. And then in number 2, we had the group that was in the house, but that was also about Matthews. And then in the first movie, it was about Danny Glover's character, and then the guys in the room, of course, the Doc and Adam. But I don't know. I just feel like this series only wants you to be attached to Kramer and Hoffman. That's what it feels like. And then Jill, as we proceed in 5 and 6. It just feels like we shouldn't be cheering for nor being attached to any other character but the three villains in a way. Although Jill's not really technically a villain, but
I mean, when you really think about it, Jill was really the main heroine through the series.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like Saw 5, 6, and 7. She pretty much was. Yeah, I guess when you put it that way, I guess if there's one character that was consistent, it was her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Strom. I think Strom was the one character that I was kind of bummed got killed off in 5 because he felt like he was going to be the hero going forward to the series ended because he was trying to expose every little piece of the puzzle, and then for him to die the way he did.
Does it surprise you though?
No, it doesn't really surprise me because Hoffman always seemed to outsmart
you knew
him in
that
the end.
you knew that Hoffman was going to end up doing that to keep himself hidden.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense. Hoffman was always a step ahead of him. I think the one thing, too, about 5 that bothered me the most was that the movie felt a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, I can understand it, but it still was leagues above 3 and 4.
Oh, yeah. No. I would not fault the ending of this film to be... No, I was just surprised where Saw 5 ended. Strom gets crushed and the movie just ends. It felt really abrupt, I guess. But yeah, that's how I kind of felt.
It felt abrupt, but I thought it was a decent ending, I guess, to this movie in particular.
I don't think it was the worst ending of the series.
No. But anyway, going through this, during a press conference, Hoffman is promoted to detective lieutenant and credited with closing the Jigsaw case. He finds a note in his office reading, "I know who you are," and learns of Agent Lindsay Perez's death while taking Strom's cell phone from the police evidence room. At the hospital, Strom tells Hoffman that Perez's last words were Detective Hoffman and questions how he escaped the plant. After being put on medical leave by his boss, Dan Erickson, Strom, suspicious of Hoffman, decides to uncover his involvement with Jigsaw and takes case files of past Jigsaw victims to research them on his own.
Yeah, the crumbs that we get here that all lead to Strom being the guy they're targeting in Saw 6. I think this is where this is the mistakes that Strom made, is that he deep down he knew Hoffman was always staying ahead of him, but he kind of got so blocked by Hoffman being the guy that he wasn't necessarily using his brain going forward, and he didn't think about the long-term picture of this. Hoffman's big master plan was not only have Strom get killed and trap him, but to basically pin the murders all on him.
No, I know that, but this was a good, I guess, chess match between the two.
It was, and that's why I liked those two kind of butting heads, because I thought that they were.
And this one didn't focus a lot on the traps like the others did, I thought.
Maybe that's why I liked it, because I didn't feel like we were relying on that.
3 and 4 relied a lot on the traps. 5 here involved a lot of character development, which we thought, which we had discussed on the first episode of this retrospective, was a key part of why 1 and 2 were good.
Mm-hmm. No,
Which
you're
is
right.
why I think we enjoyed 5 a lot more than 3 and 4, is because it kind of went back to those roots.
Well, I also like 2 and 5, where again we went with a group of people like Saw 2 that were trying to get through the traps room by room. And I think Saw always works is at its best when it puts groups of people in situations where they got to get through trap rooms. And Saw 2 and 5 were the only ones to do it up until Jigsaw, where Jigsaw did it. And that's part of the reason why I liked Jigsaw a little bit too, is because it went back to that group trap thing. I'd even put number 1 in that category with a group trap, even though it's only 2 of them. It was still them trying to get out of a room where they were trying to find out how to get out. The movies always seem to suffer when it's just putting one person in a trap and making them get out of it instead of a group.
Oh, I know. But I'm kind of glad. I think that they did a lot of good things with this film. Even the camera work felt like it was a lot better in this film than in the prior films.
It wasn't as frantic. The editing was not as crazy and out of control and flashy. Different direction, I think, actually was a better thing for them to go forward with, because the direction 3 and 4, I just felt like were a little too frantic.
No, I agree. But anyway, so going back to this, in an underground sewer level, we're going in through the group of people here. 5 people awaken with collars locked around their necks, connected by cables to a set of blades mounted on the wall behind them. The keys to the collars are in individual glass boxes around the room. A videotape informs them that they are all connected and need to complete multiple tests to survive. They are also told to do the opposite, in quotations here, of their instincts throughout the game. Everyone survives the first game but Ashley, who fails to retrieve a key and gets decapitated when the collars retract. In the second room, which is filled with explosives on a timer, Malik, Britt, and Luba each receive keys to bomb shelters set in the walls, leaving Charles to die when the timer expires and explosives detonate. In the third room, Britt kills Luba, and she and Malik connect her corpse to 5 cables to complete an electric circuit that unlocks the next door. In the final room, Malik and Britt find a machine fitted with 5 saws and a beaker requiring 10 pints of blood to open the final door. They realize that all prior tests could have been completed without victims if they worked together and figure out their connection. They were all involved in a building fire that killed 8 people. Malik and Britt concede a truce and each slice an arm and the saws to provide the blood needed to open the door.
I liked that twist in the explanation of they needed everybody in that room and they could have worked together all along, because they were all so bullheaded through each trap that they just felt like every person needed to die in one room.
Yeah, which goes exactly with the description here, and that they were told to do the opposite of their instincts throughout the game.
Yep. And I liked that little twist. And sadly, I guess based upon what we see,
but it was the fact that we really, those two both ended up getting out of the puzzle set by Hoffman essentially in this.
Yeah, but I don't know if the guy survived, because the last time we saw him, he was on the ground, passed out, still in the room, and the door was still open, which I thought the bombs would still go off in that room if they didn't go through the door, which it never seemed to. But when the FBI agent came in the room and was going through the room looking for, clues, and he saw that Strom's phone was there and this and that, he helped the woman as she was bleeding out. But the thing that bothered me is that he never called like an ambulance. She was bleeding out and she never called anything. He's looking around the room and he's not calling for help.
Well, because a lot of these people are aware of, the different puzzles that Jigsaw would have had set up. So it could have been a lot worse had he actually called someone, because you never know what kind of trap that might have been set to prevent them from interrupting the game.
Do you think that either one of those two survived because they never really,
I think they did.
at least her, I think. I kind of got the idea that she may.
I think they both did. I think it was the guy passed out from blood loss is what it was.
Mm. So yeah, but all in all, yeah, I liked the twist there. Which led to
Then
everything.
going back through this, meanwhile, Strom learns that Hoffman killed Baxter as revenge for murdering his sister and made it look like a jigsaw game to get away with the crime. It is revealed through flashbacks that he was later abducted by John Kramer, who blackmailed Hoffman into becoming his first apprentice. So, really, Hoffman was blackmailed into becoming Kramer's first apprentice. Otherwise, Hoffman would have been going down with murder.
You know, I would have agreed with what Hoffman did up until the point in Saw 6 when they find out his identity and he kills everybody in that room when they're going through the audio tape, and the way he kills Perez with the knife or with and stabbing her. Up to that point, I would have thought, okay, he's being blackmailed. He had no choice. But at that point, I was kind of like, no, dude, you're not redeemable. You've gone really, really bad. You're just as bad as anybody else now.
Oh, exactly. And that was kind of to be expected. Like Kramer knew what was going to happen, I think, in the end.
Yep.
So let's see. It was also revealed through flashbacks that Hoffman assisted Kramer in kidnapping Paul Leahy for his test and Saw, as well as assisting Kramer in setting up the nerve gas house from Saw 2. Strom concludes that everyone was meant to die at the plant except for Corbett and Hoffman, who would appear as a hero. Everywhere elsewhere, Strom's activities draw Erickson's concern, which is further fueled when John's ex-wife Jill Tuck, who received a box and videotape from John's will, approaches him and claims Strom is stalking her. After Hoffman tells Erickson about Strom's theory of a second accomplice, Erickson tries to call him. Hoffman intercepts the call on Strom's phone and immediately hangs up. Now suspecting that Strom is involved, Erickson has one of his agents track the phone signal. So we got a lot of information in the sequences of flashbacks, at least, which, again, I think they could have done all this and extended the movie time for 4 and made that the final film. Like, we could have gotten a lot more information by doing that.
Do you, with Hoffman being like the guy that helped him out with everything going back as far as at least Saw 2, did you find the explanation believable or a little far-fetched?
I could find it a little believable. What about you?
There were certain aspects that I found believable because there were certain things that I think Kramer was too fragile to come up with, especially with the way some of the traps were and carrying bodies and such. So somebody had to be involved. I think the only part that I found to be a little dicey was Hoffman and Amanda's kind of tension and situation. And then in Saw 6, finding out that he was part of the reason why Amanda decided to kill the doctor and why she also ended up getting killed, that he was basically the reason for that.
I can understand the far-fetchedness of that.
Because I felt like we were duped. Like, okay, so now all of a sudden Amanda only went bad because Hoffman forced her into it. To me, Saw 3 gave us the impression that Amanda was just jealous of the doc being close with Jigsaw in those situations. To me, it almost felt like a retcon of Amanda to try to justify her. And I didn't like that. I thought they were trying a little too hard to make Amanda not as bad as she was. It's like, for instance, when she sent the drug guy into the center that ultimately resulted in Jill losing the baby.
Yeah.
And how she felt guilty for that, but she felt sad about it. So the movie, again, Saw 6, felt the need to retcon her a little bit and justify her actions. And to me, it just made Saw 3 now feel with her like she's not as bad as we were made to be believed.
Exactly. And you find out really that it was technically because of Amanda that Jill lost her baby.
Yeah, it was because she sent the guy in there to go after drugs, and that caused the confrontation.
And really, you can start like it was 7, I think, wrapped everything up, like I said, in a neat little bow because we got the more explanation from Amanda, especially with this, with that movie. Once we get there, and like that's what we should have gotten, I think, in 4.
We could have got it all in 4. I mean, they could have cut out a
didn't
lot of the
need
bullshit in 4 in order to get that.
Like they didn't need to focus so much on, trying to go, oh, this game is taking place at the same time as 3 was. They could have taken that and still done a little bit of the game, but they could have also made the movie longer and put these flashbacks and the story progression in 4 and gotten an ending to the story then.
Well, I think they wasted so much time in Saw 3 because, like I told you before, Saw 3 ended up being the longest. I think it was an hour 50, hour 55, which is long for a Saw film because all these afterward have been like an hour 35, hour 30. I feel like that Saw 3 wasted its nearly 2 hour runtime. That if it would have got past a lot of the filler bullcrap that we got in 3 and done some of what Saw 4, 5, and 6 had done, we very easily could have got this all wrapped up in 4 movies.
Oh, exactly. But going to the last bit of 5 here. Following the signal to an observation room for the sewer game, Erickson finds the phone and his own personnel file, both planted by Hoffman. He also finds the still living Britton Malik and calls for medical attention before putting an all points bulletin on Strom, convinced that he is Jigsaw's successor. Meanwhile, Strom follows Hoffman to the renovated nerve gas house and finds an underground room containing a box filled with broken glass shards and a tape. In the tape, Hoffman urges Strom to enter the box, but he stops it short and ambushes Hoffman, whom he seals in the box. Strom believes he has finally caught Hoffman, but the door to the room shuts itself, and the walls begin to close in as the box is lowered into the floor. Strom finishes playing the tape, which warns him that if he does not enter the box, he will die, and edited tapes will be broadcast to frame him as Jigsaw's apprentice. Hoffman descends safely beneath the floor as Strom is finally crushed to death. Like I said, I think that this was a great ending to the movie, showing that Hoffman, if they weren't going to, if they weren't planning on making another movie after this, I think this could have been a good ending here because this was Hoffman won the game of chess against Strom, and that Hoffman would have gotten his wish and framed Strom for all the Jigsaw murders after Kramer had died.
Yeah, and that also could have been the end of Hoffman's story. It could have been the end of him playing Kramer's game instead of having it prolong into, more shenanigans and then lead him down a path of complete no way of going back kind of situation that we get.
Exactly. And Hoffman knew that Strom would have been aggressive and not listened fully to the tape because entering that box would have saved his life. Yeah,
it would have. And it's almost like Hoffman knew there was no way he's going to get in that box. He was basically telling him, hey, get in the box, it's going to save your life. But he knew damn well he wasn't going to get in there. He knew it all along.
Yeah. So is the end of 5. So favorite trap?
I don't think I could pick out one specific one. I like the whole series of events of traps through each room that all 5 of them have to get through to get the keys in the bathtub. I like that whole sequence of all those traps combined.
I agree. I enjoyed that. I have to say, though, my favorite was probably the first one. The first room.
The pendulum?
No. The first room.
The first room with the things tied and they had to get to the keys.
That
was a pretty good one, too. Yeah. I liked the traps. I thought the traps were a little bit more innovative this time around. They didn't have to be like overly thought out. They were just basic and simple, but they worked. They worked. The movie didn't feel the need to focus on that, and that's what makes this movie better than some of the ones before it.
Exactly.
All right, so Saw 6. Overall thoughts on Saw 6. Not quite as good as Saw 5.
No, it wasn't as good as Saw 5, but still better than 3 and 4.
It was. 5 and 6 is kind of what I hoped 3 and 4 would have been. And this is exactly why we said 3 and 4 could have ended the series, because when you think about it, 3 and 4 almost don't feel necessary. Some of the plot stuff, anyway.
Some of the plot stuff, yeah, but I mean, Kramer's death, you kind of figured was going to have to be in there at some point.
Yeah, that's about the only thing I think out of Saw 3 and 4 that was kind of like an important moment. Everything else in Saw 3 and 4 just kind of felt like getting to another point, or to advance the story in another direction.
Yeah. All right, so going into a little bit on the story here for Saw 6, directed by Kevin Gruter in his feature directorial debut, from a screenplay written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, the 6th installment in the Saw film series. Obviously stars your normal cast at this point, which is Tobin Bell, Costas Mandylor, Betsy Russell, Mark Rolston, Peter Outerbridge, and Shawnee Smith. Similar to its predecessor, Saw 6 maintains the focus on the posthumous effects of the Jigsaw Killer and the progression of his successor, Hoffman. The plot follows an insurance executive who must complete a series of deadly games set up by Hoffman in order to rescue his employees. Meanwhile, the FBI comes to suspect that Peter Strom, who was framed by Hoffman as being Jigsaw's successor, is not actually a Jigsaw accomplice, and reopens the investigation, drawing Hoffman into motion to protect his secret identity.
This is another situation where we went back to rooms of traps, but these weren't like your rooms of traps from Saw 5. This was a journey to basically get inside the mind of the insurance worker to use his job against him in these trials, which I thought were really cool because the trials were so fitting to his job. And we get that nice flashback with Kramer and the insurance man. And that conversation is so important to his whole game with these traps. And that's why, again, this is another situation where the traps don't feel like they're just being thrown down our throat for blood. There's some thought to them. There's some reasoning to them. And this is why I think, again, this works better than 3 and 4.
Yeah. All right. So interesting note here. Going through actually, I just found out another good reason as to why Saw 6 did so low.
Mm-hmm.
Paranormal Activity released around the same time. First one.
That's when Paranormal Activity got red hot. That was like the new fad. Saw was kind of making its way out. Paranormal Activity was making its way back in. And it's kind of funny because Paranormal Activity started taking the same route as Saw with numerous franchise installments. I think they got up to 5 or 6 too, did they not?
I think so.
Yeah.
Last I knew, they might have started going direct to DVD.
That wouldn't surprise me.
But so interesting little information here, though. Film was released by Lionsgate in the United States on October 23rd, 2009. In Spain, it was the first film to receive a Película X rating for violence, a rating usually reserved for pornographic films. The rating restricted screenings to 8 select theaters in that country. It was released almost a year later on October 8th, 2010 in Spain with an 18 rating after the producers had the offensive content edited out according to the rating board. With gross receipts of $14 million in its opening weekend, Saw 6 placed second to Paranormal Activity's $21 million. 6 went on to gross over $68 million worldwide, the lowest grossing Saw film to date, but still a financial success compared to its small budget. Reviews were mixed, with some criticizing the acting and others praising Gurte's directing, considering it an improvement over the last few installments, and noted the film's contribution to the debate on healthcare reform in the United States.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that it kind of came around the time that Obamacare had been launched. And yeah, I could see that there was a lot of references to it, actually. I don't know if it was in a negative way or a positive way. I looked at it as in they were kind of knocking Obamacare in this case.
Uh, I mean, when you consider, I mean, it it actually had a contribution to the debate on healthcare reform in the United States. So I would say more it was praising it than anything else.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I
Like
guess.
like a mandatory like healthcare reform for everyone. Yeah, we got a comment here. Doing good. How about you?
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
All right, so we're going to go into the first bit of this film here. Oh, loan sharks Eddie and Simone, locked into head harnesses with screws aimed at their temples, have 1 minute to each carve flesh from their bodies with their provided cutting tools and weigh the scale individually in favor for survival. When the overweight Eddie slices chunks of fat from his stomach, the contraption kills him after Simone chops off her arm and tips the scale until the timer expires. Their game is observed by Hoffman, who had exited the box to safety, and implants the scene with fingerprints using FBI agent Peter Strom's severed hand. The police and FBI agent Dan Erickson investigate along with FBI agent Lindsay Perez, whose survival was concealed by Erickson for her protection. During the autopsy on Eddie, Dr. Adam Hefner reveals the scalpel used to cut the flesh pieces from his body is the same blade used years ago on Seth Baxter. Perez and Erickson reopen the investigation to analyze the videotape found at the crime scene and distort the speaker's voice.
Okay, so I guess the only part of the movie that I felt like was a little jumbled, and this is not even that bad, was of course when we were trying to figure out what exactly Jill was doing with the box. They really danced around that for a good more than half of the film, not really showing us what was going on with that box and what was in it and what its relevance was to the plot going forward.
Yeah.
Because really they didn't show us really much of what it was until about maybe 75% of the way through the film.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it was probably about that amount of times when we've got to see anything.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean that's my only gripe I think here.
Yeah, I really didn't have a whole lot to complain about. There were bits and pieces where like, okay, was this really necessary, or they could have done this a little bit better, but this is to be expected.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're 6 movies into a franchise that's gone well past its expiration.
Prime.
Yeah, so I mean, we're bound to get some things that are going to be eye-rolling inducing at this point.
All right, so going further in here, Hoffman arrives at Jill Tuck's clinic and demands her to hand him 5 envelopes containing photographs of the following game's test subjects from the box left to her in Kramer's last request. The game involves health insurance executive William Easton and his associates, whose company's dubious business policy turned down their clients' coverage for medical treatment. After Hoffman abducts them to an abandoned zoo, William and his janitor Hank are suspended in chains with large metal vices that will crush their bodies each time they breathe in their oxygen masks. The vice kills Hank as William proceeds to his other 3 tests to unlock the remaining bond shackles from his limbs. The second test at an aquarium forces William to save his elderly secretary, Addie, over his file clerk, Alan, who hangs to death from his barbed wire noose. At the boiler room, William unwittingly releases his lawyer, Debbie, who attacks him to retrieve a key inside his body and unlock a spear gun. attached to her harness, but he manages to fight her off until the device kills her. William's last test involves his 6 subordinates chained to rotating roundabouts, where he is only able to save 2 of them from a mounted shotgun. The game is viewed by Mother Tara with her teenage son Brent and news journalist Pamela Jenkins from 2 opposite animal closures below the observation room.
I got to ask you this question. So I don't know if you noticed a few small cameo parts in this part here with his associates that were in the spinning trap. First of all, have you watched Family Matters, which is the Urkel show, Steve Urkel show?
Yeah.
Okay, you know the one that played the brother, the big brother, the older brother?
Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie was in this movie.
Really? What's the actor's name?
Oh, I don't even know.
Do you know what his character's name was?
I don't know the character's name, but he was the character in the beginning when he was talking about. He stood up. He was in like a yellow shirt, and he told him about how he found this, and this. We can't cover this guy because he goes to the doctor all the time.
Give me 1 second here.
I'll explain the other one too. Have you ever seen the show Winona Earp?
No, I have not.
Okay, one of the other girls too that was in the spinning trap. She was in the pink shirt too. She actually plays the lead character, Winona Earp.
Okay.
So, yeah, there were 2 characters that or 2 actors that I recognized in this part that I was actually surprised to see.
Okay. Yeah, he was Dave.
Yep.
That's actually pretty interesting. I never caught that until you mentioned it, so I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that to see.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So going back through here, during the game, Hoffman is called away by Erickson to the audio lab after obtaining the videotape. Erickson, now aware of Strom's demise, confronts Hoffman after discovering the abnormalities found in Strom's fingerprints at the time of his death. When Hoffman's voice is unscrambled from the tape, he kills Erickson, Perez, and a technician before they could discover his identity as Jigsaw's accomplice. Hoffman returns to the observation room and finds the letter he wrote to Amanda Young, who indirectly instigated Cecil Adams' robbery at Jill's clinic that resulted in her miscarriage. Hoffman used this knowledge to blackmail Amanda into killing Dr. Lynn Denlin. The letter was found by Pamela and given to Jill, who then used it to ambush Hoffman. Jill, who had the remaining contents from a box, including a 6th envelope containing Hoffman's photo, restrains him and locks a modified reverse bear trap to his head, posthumously fulfilling John's will to test Hoffman after his death.
Tell me something. Were you a little upset about Perez's death after they just brought her back when we thought she was dead?
Yeah, I was a little upset about that. I'm not gonna lie, but I kind of saw that one coming.
I mean, yeah, it made sense. She knew too much. She had her suspicions of Hoffman from the time that especially since Strom had said that the one thing she said before he thought she was dead was about Hoffman. So, I mean, it was only a matter of time. That was either going to be her or Hoffman, and we knew that Hoffman wasn't going to go down by her. It was just it just wouldn't have worked.
Oh, I know. But it still sucked to see that.
Yeah.
And I do like that sequence here with Jill ambushing Hoffman, and we find out that the contents from the box included the envelope containing Hoffman's photo and the modified reverse bear trap, and the will from John to test Hoffman after his death to see, whether or not he had the will to survive. Which, you find out in 7 that, after the end of this, that, yeah, he got the will to survive and all that, but that also set him off in a way that just pissed him off to the point where he went after Jill after this.
Yeah, I was kind of glad that Jill didn't bite it here because I thought,
and I was fully expecting that this had to have been expected by Kramer because of the envelope that was sent to his actual accomplice.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I liked the structure here going into this reveal at the end of the film as to, how Jill's laying out kind of her plan of her own and kind of tricking Hoffman without giving him the final envelope.
Yeah. All right. So the end of the film here. William reaches the end of his path and enters the cages where he reunites with Pamela, who was his sister. He is
That was a hell
confronted.
of a twist.
What's that?
That was a hell of a twist.
Oh, I know. He is confronted by Tara and Brent, who are the family of Harold Abbott, a former client who had succumbed to his heart disease after William recently denied his medical request. John's videotape informs Tara to decide William's fate by using the lever in her cell that connects the two tanks of hydrofluoric acid from each cage. When William and Pamela try to persuade the family, an enraged Brent pulls the lever, which releases a platform of needles that injects the acid into William, killing him. Jill exits the room as Hoffman releases his wrist restraints and pulls his head out of the bear trap with the door window, tearing away his right cheek in the process after it activates. So
that was
intense. That was a great sequence, I thought, there with Hoffman, because of the fact like he had thought about how to escape that bear trap.
Mm-hmm.
By shoving it through the bars in the window in order to lock it into place. That way, I mean, yeah, he was going to take some damage from it, but it was only going to cost him the flesh from his cheek instead of, ripping his face open.
No, I thought that was very innovative of him, that he had to really think really fast on how to figure that whole thing out, and he did it quickly. Unfortunately, it cost him his cheek, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse.
Exactly. So with this, favorite trap in Saw 6?
I probably would have to go with the 6 employees on the spinning trap. I thought that was kind of a creative idea with the shotgun and making him decide which 2 are going to survive out of the 6.
Okay. Mine, I figured you would have gone with 2 only because of the sequence that followed with it and the quick thinking on Hoffman, and that was the reverse bear trap.
The reverse bear trap was pretty good,
and the fact that it had a moment of symbolism in 7, which ultimately was the cause, because that was the same trap that was put on him was put on Jill, which was the reason that she ended up getting killed in the last movie.
Yep. No, it made a lot of sense, and it's a pretty cool full circle moment. At the end of this film, it sets up the final, what should have been the final movie pretty well. It's definitely a good setup for it. But yeah, so okay. So now that we've gotten to the point of through 6 films, now where do you rank them?
I'm still going to say 1 and 2 are my top, 3 and 4 at my bottom. I'm going to have to say 3 at the bottom. Well, 4 at the bottom, 3 above that. Then I'm going to have to go 6 above that, 5 after that, then 2, then 1.
Okay. My order's kind of changed a little bit now. 1, of course, still staying at the top because 1's just one of the best ones, no question about it. But where it used to be 2 for me at number 2, number 5 is now at number 2.
Okay.
So now it's gonna go 1, 5, 2, 6, 4, 3.
Okay.
So yeah, 3. I don't know. 3 is staying at the bottom, and I don't see Jigsaw or 7 taking that spot. 3 it was just too long and just dragged out and had too much stuff that just was completely unnecessary. So I don't see 3 moving out of that slot, unfortunately.
No, I can understand that. Mm-hmm. I don't fault you for that list at all. I would go the same route too. It's just I thought 2 was slightly better than 5.
Fair enough. The 2 and 5 is tough because 2 and 5, I saw a lot of similarities with each other. So in a way, I feel like they're almost kind of on the same level with each other. So it was kind of hard to decide that. But I think the reason I picked 5 is because I found myself enjoying 5 just a tad bit more.
Okay. I can tell you right now, once we get through the next one, my order is going to change up.
Near the top is going to change up?
Yeah, near the top's going to change up.
Interesting. Okay, I'll be curious to hear that one.
So do you have anything else you want to add, Mike?
No, just that next week will be our Saw retrospective finale for now until Spiral comes out with Saw the Final Chapter and Jigsaw. And
then another thing is that it's looking like we are going to be doing the Matrix retrospective as the next series.
Yep, we're going to announce that the Matrix retrospective will be next. We'll say the Matrix trilogy retrospective, but again, it's the same situation with Saw. It's the Saw trilogy or the Matrix trilogy retrospective for now until we get the Matrix 4 at the end of the year to talk about that one. But so yes, the Matrix will be coming next from us. We got word from Dan English today that he will be rejoining us, so it looks like we're going to have our entire 5-man crew back for the Matrix retrospective. So that'll be
nice.
Yeah, because we have not been all 5 since we did the solo podcast. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Lots to discuss with the Matrix. And we're going to do something different with the Matrix. Instead of doing, where we combine movies in one podcast, we will be going back to doing a movie a podcast because the Matrix is just too thought-provoking. There's just too much detail to go and just talk about them all in one podcast.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that is the right option that you need to do with that. You need to give each film their due time.
Yeah, their due diligence, and then that's exactly what we're going to do. So, all right. So 1 through 6 of Saw complete, 7 and 8 to come next week. I think we're looking at the Matrix retrospective probably beginning either next week or the following week. We'll keep you updated on our Facebook and Twitter pages on when that's going to be coming at you, but look for our finale of the Saw retrospective this time next week.
All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jason Kabowski and Mike Winkler for the shut up, Mike. For the Lights, Camera, Action review podcast. That's a wrap.
Cut and